Okay, I would like to show all of the people of the United States, including the Democrats and the Republicans and the Independents, what our current law actually says. This is the law that was passed under George Bush. It's in the spirit of people like our former U.S. Attorney Rachel Pelosi, who made one of her top priorities fighting this kind of prostitution and sex trafficking of young girls and other kinds of serious human trafficking of any gender. And and if you look at this, it's in the U.S. Code, and it's called 8 U.S. Code 1232, Enhancing Efforts to Combat the Trafficking of Children. And I put it here on the screen for you. And what I am trying to do is dispel the misinformation supplied by the New York Times, by Brit Hume on the Fox News, by Barack Obama. The silence is deafening of Eric Holder, who should correct this misperception that somehow this law is responsible for sitting at the border with all of these children and leaving among them some who are potential victims of sex trafficking, and then causing this huge humanitarian crisis in an effort to put pressure on Republicans to cave to the Senate Democrats' bill on immigration. So just look at this. And what's causing confusion is this falsehood that somehow Congress, in passing this bill, intended only to screen out those who are being sex trafficked or those who have a reasonable fear of persecution in their home country, but they're only doing this for Mexico. Because, as you can see here, they have this number 2 here, special rules for children from contiguous countries, and people say, well, Guatemala is not contiguous, and therefore children from Guatemala, we're just looking at their age, and then they just kind of sit around for months and months until they get hearings, and et cetera, et cetera. But this Wilberforce law is to protect children from both contiguous and non-contiguous countries from these kinds of activities. And if you look here at 2A determinations, and you look at numbers 1 and 2, that's what we're looking for. Children who have been a victim of a severe form of trafficking in persons. We're talking about sex trafficking, and also that there would be credible evidence that they would be at risk of being trafficked upon return to the child's country of nationality or of last habitual residence. And number 2, the second group we're looking for, whether they come from Mexico or Central America, is those who have a fear of returning to the country of nationality or of last habitual residence owing to a credible fear of persecution. Now, I am saying that it's just horrific and reprehensible for any Democrat or any Republican or any independent to be saying, let's repeal this law that's going to protect these children just because we have a big aggregation of immigrants out of Central America of 60,000 unaccompanied children, and it could go to 100,000. This is no reason. There's no reason to repeal this law to take these protections away, and that's why I'm showing you this law. So let's look at the construction. It's a little bit confusing because you have 2 special rules for children from contiguous countries, and then you have 3 rule for other children. And on a superficial reading, a politician, pundit, can and they have tried to confuse this and say, well, no, there's no such determination as in 2A in number 3. I mean, apparently they want another exact of rules for other children under number 3 as in number 2. But Congress doesn't write things that way, and for good reason. Okay, so what I'm telling you is you could easily see from the construction of this that 2A determinations applies equally under number 3 to other children as it does under number 2. Now, number 2 has this section A, 2A determinations. But if you look at 3, it specifically says that they're going to select out people under 2A because it says rules for other children, the custody of unaccompanied alien children not described in paragraph 2A who are apprehended at the border of the United States or at a United States port of entry. So they are setting aside those children who are described in 2A. And yet you don't hear Brit Hume, you don't hear the New York Times, you don't hear Barack Obama or his colleagues out there saying, wait a minute, we are also supposed to help these children who are being trafficked or have a reasonable fear of persecution when they come from Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras or any other country. And so he's creating a false perception, and he's cleverly using this to argue against the Republican. Going on then from number 3, look at number 4. Number 4 makes it completely clear. It's called screening, and this is a second level. The first level, whether you're from Mexico or another Central American country, they're going to select you out. They're going to determine that you are within this group of people who they're looking to help with this Wilberforce law. So in the first case, if they looked at you and they made a negative determination, they said you are not being sex trafficked, you don't have a fear of reasonable persecution, then they're going to return you. But this law says not that they're supposed to muck up the protection of these kids from this kind of vulnerability, but it says that they're going to help all of them, and they're trying to select out these people who are not in there, and the rest of them go to this second level in number 4, which is screening. That takes only 48 hours, whether you're from Mexico or whether you are from another Central American country. And they're going, again, for those who are now believed, because they haven't been selected out, they believe to be described in paragraph 2A, and even if it's not within 48 hours, but before returning them, they're going to screen them. So I hope this breakdown makes things real simple for those from Mexico, but also for those from Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, or anywhere. We want to fight both severe trafficking and persecution in their home country, and we do this with the Wilberforce Act, which requires identification, screening, and then protection, including hearings with witnesses to fight these wrongs, and then repatriation that keeps these select immigrants, basically refugees, safe and secure from these perils. Sounds like the American thing to do, doesn't it? And kudos to George Bush and those like Rachel Pelosi, who represent the human rights and standards of human dignity of our nation. Let's keep our nation great. If you turn out to vote for me on August 12th, Independence Day in Minnesota, I'll go on and raise these issues in debates with Al Franken and the U.S. Senate. I'm Steve Carlson, and I approve this message. Well, until that day, the dream of lasting peace, world citizenship, the rule of international morality will remain but a fleeting illusion to be pursued but never attained. To enhance the efforts of the United States of America to prevent all trafficking of persons, the Secretary of Homeland Security, in conjunction with the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, Health and Human Services, shall develop policies and procedures to ensure the unaccompanied children in the United States of America are safely repatriated, not abandoned nor discredited to their country nationality or of their last habitual residence, repatriated, not abandoned, and until that day, the dream of lasting peace, world citizenship, and a rule of international morality will remain but a fleeting illusion to be pursued but never attained.